I might be having just a little bit of a Buzz Lightyear moment right now. Just a little bit of a life crisis. Just a little. You're a squid now, you're a kid, wow, you're a squid, you're a kid, or maybe you're an anime girl. Wait, what? Welcome today to the Proving Grounds. We get all splats and painty with Splatoon for the Wii U, the original 2015. Oh my goodness, I'm fucking old. Yes, the first Splatoon came out in 2015. Fuck. Even freaking games I didn't grow up on are now making me feel fucking old. Damn it. Anyway, Splatoon was probably one of the major new IPs Nintendo did for the Wii U, and is probably one of the highlight titles of the Wii U itself. After all, it's considered a failure to most people, and most people don't really like it. Though, of course, like everything else, it has its fans, and I personally always saw a lot of lost potential that Nintendo never capitalized on it, but that is the shame of the system. Splatoon was basically Nintendo's attempt to do like a Call of Duty kids friendly kind of thing, and it was honestly a really fun idea in my opinion. But I gotta say, looking at the game now, because obviously I've played it now versus then, though I did play it online when I got this. While it took me forever to go through the single-player campaign, I did play the online, and I enjoyed that aspect. But I will have comments to talk about the current state of the online. But let's stick to the main draw that most people will have with this game at this point, the single-player story. Because there is unfortunate news with the online that some people can probably guess. So, in Splatoon, you play as a squid kid. You can pick your gender and you'll be thrown into Inkopolis and you'll be informed that somebody has basically stole the source of electricity for Inkopolis, this being the single player storyline. In front of you is the big facility that hosts the multiplayer, and you also have access to excuse me. You also have access to stores, and you have the dueling area, which is the only other offline thing that's on here. You can do a one-on-one local duel, and as I said, I will have something to say about multiplayer, is the only way to have any PvP left in this game, sadly. Which is a huge shame, and hopefully something we'll see as an improvement in Splatoon 2 when I play that. So the single-player story is accessed by going into the drain system near the multiplayer ramp, and you'll go in and you'll get dumped a bit of the story about the game, and you'll have access to the stages. So you'll have this environment that you have to find the entrances to the stages. You'll go in and you'll go through the stages. Now, it's a over-the-shoulders third-person experience, and the interesting aspect is that instead of bullets and shit, you're using ink, paint. And what's interesting in the aspect is that you can swim as a squid through the ink. This can help you traverse fast on land, go up walls, and traverse terrain. It can also be used as stealth to hide and throw grenades and bombs and shit, which are a legit tactic you can do in the multiplayer. You could stay still and not be noticeable and quickly. The game focuses a lot on just being able to shoot the Octoroks, which are the enemy that stole the electrical source of power. These things are all over the place, and you'll be introduced to different elements. There are stages that actually do stealth segments, more engaging platforming with your ink and squid forms, and that. It mixes it up, And the stages are done in very good chunks that I would imagine would actually work very well on the Switch's portability mode. But of course, this is the Wii U, so we don't have that. But they are short chunks in that. I mean, overall, the single player story is going to likely be like 5-6 hours average play time for you. So it's a pretty short game that you could really beat in one day if you're going to do an actual game session. Or you could be in the course of just a few days if you're having shorter sessions. It's not too crazy. Now, there is a hidden item in each stage that allows you to kind of dwell into the lore of Splatoon's world a little bit. These are apparently aspects they grew more on in the sequels. Apparently the DLC in Splatoon 2 greatly enhances a lot of the lore, actually. But you get glimpses of lore and information about the Turf lore and what's going on in the past, and a lot of Easter eggs and things if you collect all of them. I got, I'd say maybe a failed, I don't think maybe 50%, but I found a good fair number of them that gave me a good idea what most of them were like. They gave some Easter eggs, they gave some interesting lore to speculate on the world of Splatoon in a similar way that kind of reminds me of Pikmin a little bit. It's a different scenario, alternate dimensions, the multi-universe. But it's a pretty short story. You'll go through it, and it doesn't really enhance too much. There's a few little teeny things that happen as you complete chunks of stages, but it's just mostly going in stage and going out. Now, you also collect these little orange eggs that basically are used as currency to upgrade your guns and your bombs and such. And the amount of ink you have helps out some, but it's not a huge necessity. Personally, I would focus on having more ink first, but that's just me. But on that, you don't really have a lot of customization you can do with your character. And while the multiplayer offers a lot of different gear and stuff that you can buy, along with the amiibos that can unlock more gear, these can only be used in multiplayer. I think you can change into the amiibo gear, I think, and you also own a gear set after you complete the story mode. But other than that, like the shops and that are out in the main hub of Inkopolis, you cannot access them if you're not online. Like, the hub is basically pointless if you're not online. It is just a hollowed grave. Because when you're online, or was online, you would see people's posts, their messages above their characters, be able to clone their gear, buy gear, and all kinds of stuff like that. That is all non-existent in offline mode. And it really, sadly, looking back at it, if you didn't play this back when it was new or during any of its actual lifespan, is a real shame, because it was really lovely hopping in and just seeing like all of the delightful artwork people make and shit. It was really awesome. Probably the best part of the whole Miiverse thing that was on the Wii U is just seeing all the gorgeous art people made. It's such a shame that it's just all fucking gone. Just down the freaking drain. It's a real shame. Basically, you have a rundown of 3 type of stages. You have the most common stage where you have a set of areas that you hop between and overcome certain challenges. Some of them might be more platforming, necessarily needing your ink to climb around and get around the environment while fighting off enemy units. The second type are the ones that kind of are a simulation of the online mode, where you go up against player AI units that are like you, the player, who can go through ink and squirt ink everywhere and swim in it and hide in it and toss bombs and such. These are pretty much the closest thing you're going to get to that original experience, unless the hacking scene starts showing up from what will sadly be in the online section. And the last is, of course, the bosses. There are several bosses, and aside from the final boss, they follow a very simple hit my weak point 3 times and win system. Very simplistic, but it works out, and a few of them are interesting, and a few of them are kind of odd. So it's a mixed bag of what I would say are fun bosses, but I wouldn't say any of them are terrible. Just between pretty normal to a interesting idea. There's one in particular, other than the final boss, that I thought was actually a pretty neat idea, using the gameplay style of the game, so I wouldn't really want to spoil that one in particular. Apparently, until recently, the online had actually still existed. But apparently, recently, it and Mario Kart 8 were taken offline because of some kind of security issue that got found out. Well, apparently, you could send code to someone else's console and have it run. That sounds kind of concerning, especially if it's the kind of code that could, like, brick your system. As far as I can tell, I can't really tell what kind of code could be sent, but this is apparently the reason it was took down. There's no information on whether Nintendo will be putting them back up. Considering the eShops for the 3DS and the Wii U went down recently, it is probably, in my opinion, unlikely these servers are going back up, because Mario Kart 8, for one, is on the Switch, so that helps migrate more of those people over to the Switch and all that version. And, well, honestly, as much as I think it's a shame if nobody's ever played Splatoon 1, there's probably not a lot of people dying to play the single player of Splatoon 1, which is a shame. One day, maybe they might port it or remake it in some kind of collection or something, maybe. One day I could see Nintendo doing that way down the line. But as it is, Splatoon 1 is trapped on the Wii U, and if you're interested in it, luckily it's still a really reasonable price. Actually, it's really cheap for a Nintendo game. A lot of Nintendo, let me tell you, someone who grew up through the NES all the way to now, many Nintendo games have become ridiculously expensive. Well, a lot of shit goes down, Nintendo shit goes up. Like, usually after a Nintendo console dies, most of the first party games are going to be 60 plus, usually. You will be lucky to find some of them for under, like, 20, and more so under fucking $10. Well, luckily, Splatoon seems to averagely go between $10 to $20, which is a really good price, honestly. It's a 5-6 hour game of that, so it's not a bad price, especially if you get on the lower end. Now, if you want like a sealed copy, that's actually over 40 of that, but I don't see a lot of people caring about that outside of, obviously, collectors and shit. But here's the thing we have to do. How much is Splatoon 1 worth? Of course, that is going to be a very different opinion versus the original launch of the game, because, you know, the online's dead now. There's no knowing if the online may be turned back on, because as far as I know, Nintendo has not commented on that at all, so there's no telling if it will come back. It is very unlikely, in my opinion. It is likely fucking dead, which is a shame, but so we can only weigh it on its current merits, because after all, we're talking about the prices in the States and as of this video. So there's no online. You have single player, which is about 5-6 hours average, and all the shops and customization stuff is basically non-existent because you aren't online anymore. How much is Splatoon 1 worth? For a 5-6 hour game, it's pretty fun, colorful, creative, and honestly, for its time, it was really thinking outside the box at being a more child-friendly shooting type game. Honestly, I think in its current state, I would give it a good $15. I think is a good value for this. I think that's not too bad. There's definitely shorter games that are more fucking expensive, so I think it's really nicely done, and it actually makes me look forward to seeing what Splatoon 2 brings to the table as improvements. I really hope they improve a little bit more on the offline localness of the game, because I mean, this game is very teetering on the feeling dead kind of aspect. Like I said, you load into the hub, it just feels like a husk. Maybe if you never experienced what it was like when it was online, maybe it won't feel like that, but I saw what it's like online. I got to do several of the fights, the festivals and things, and it feels such like a husk now. Such a soulless husk. It's a real shame. If you're just curious, maybe what would I give the game back in the day of it being alive? I think I would give it maybe a generous $30 maybe back in the day of that. I don't really feel like even with online it's a solid 60, because I would have likely imagined I was going to likely still complain about the aspect that its offlineness is pretty lacking. It's good that it has something for you to still be able to play. I appreciate that. I do. Because obviously we have so many games that just, they get shut down. They're just completely dead because you can't even play it offline without, like, massively hacking in that. But I'm sure I would have pointed out the aspect that the game feels pretty weak without its online modes. And yeah, that's pretty much what we're left with. It's still a fun, enjoyable experience to play through, but unless you're really dedicated to Splatoon, you're probably not going to run down, buy a Wii U just to play this title if you don't already have a Wii U. But if you do have a Wii U, and for some reason you never did get Splatoon, it's super cheap, and it's an enjoyable game. I can recommend it. I would check it out. And, well, it's a pretty short little review. I mean, there's a few little extras, like you can control the Wii U pad with, how you hold it versus the analog stick. Personally, I'd rather use the analog sticks, but apparently, like in high-level play in the PvP, apparently a lot of people made use of the gyroscope mode on the pad and that. But, obviously, in a single-player mode, it's not going to be that big of a thing. Now, there are a few stages in the single player that kind of mimic the vibe of the multiplayer, where you have a bunch of basically AI bots that play as players attacking you on the different maps. So there's a few kind of simulations of the multiplayer and the single player, but, it's AI, though. Pretty stupid, to be honest, so it's not really the same, but it can give you a small idea what it was like. But yeah, if you're looking for the multiplayer, you'll just likely better off getting Splatoon 2 for the Switch, because I imagine that's cheaper than Splatoon 3. But those are my thoughts on Splatoon 1. I definitely think it's worth checking out. It might be a lot less than what it was when it first came out, but I think it's worth still checking out. And I can see down the road the price probably going back up over time. Right now it might be cheap, but I've seen that before, like, where games go cheap and then they just fucking go up. But it is interesting to see how it has went vastly down over the years, so who knows? It might go up, it might go down, but if you got a Wii U, I recommend go check it out. And for those who want to know what I think about the story, the spoiler section, of course, it's not too crazy. It's a pretty simple story. The captain gets kidnapped about midway through the story, and you start getting contacted by the other two agents, and you meet the boss, who I think was actually a really fun boss. It's a he's like a whole stage in his own, in multiple like forms of his boss, and you're slowly getting these portions of his fight, and then it all happens at one time at the very end. And it was actually a really fun boss fight, that. But the other bosses, they're pretty easy. They each have their gimmicks and that, but they're pretty easy in their own, and didn't really have any special place in the story or anything like that. It's just pretty par of the course. Now, when it comes to the unique Squalls you can find that dump lore, they do make you speculate on like what happened to the world, because it seems like it's pretty clear that this is either a world that used to be inhabited by something, or it's Earth, hence the Pikmin kind of connection. That something happened to the life that was on the planet, and either they evolved differently or other life forms involved. Like I said, I didn't get all the Squalls, and still those apparently story aspects still being speculated here and there about the overarching story of Splatoon. But it kind of gave me the vibe that people either evolved or went extinct, and other creatures evolved into a more hive mind than that. Hard to say. Like I said, I didn't get everything. There were some funny Easter eggs. I liked some nods at like ancient life and stuff. Like there was this one with the Wii U pad going like, apparently doing some kind of ancient ritual or something like that. Like there's a few funny gags and stuff, and some of the visuals of the pictures that go with some of the text and that. But it's nothing too mind-boggling in at least Splatoon 1. I hear the big awesome moment when it came to story stuff was in the DLC for Splatoon 2, so we might see about that one day maybe. But that'd be in the future. But I think it's an okay story. You know, it's a Nintendo game. Nintendo's not usually too known for having big scale stories there, and when they do, it sometimes feels like Miyamoto goes after and bludgeons them with a hammer because they don't want them making their games look worse. Paper Mario. Anyway, but I still enjoyed the game. I recommend. But anyway, if you have any questions or anything about the game, or about my review, or anything to me, feel free to leave a comment down below, and leave a like if you feel like you learned anything interesting, and leave a dislike guilt-free if you feel like you learned nothing at all about Splatoon 1. And if you did, it should have been like, you know, the servers are dead now, but you know. Anyway, though, I will see you all next time at the Proving Grounds. Be careful, because there might be a short circuit at Inkopolis.